What's going on, guys? The Comics Kid 2099 here. Welcome to day 245 of the 365-day graphic novel review challenge. Today, I want to talk to you about another Mark Wheatley comic book. This is called Frankenstein Mobster. This is from IDW. It is 8 issues long. It's an issue 0 and then a 7-issue miniseries that comes after. This is written and drawn by Mark Wheatley. And I like this one quite a bit more than Hammer of the Gods, which he wrote but did not draw. As you know, if you watched yesterday's video, Hammer of the Gods was a book that I really liked the first time I read it several years ago, and then when I reread it just recently, I did not like it nearly as much the second time around. This one, I really liked it the first time I read it, and then I reread it again recently, and I still really liked it. The premise is pretty simple. There's this fictional city called Monstrose City, which is a port city, and sometime after World War II, this city saw an influx of monsters, like mummies, vampires, werewolves, and at one point one of the characters says, we always had witches and ghosts, just like every town, but then after World War II, we got all these other monsters, and these monsters are second-class citizens, and most of the normies, they don't really care about the monsters, except for our protagonist, Terry Todd. Terry with an I. She is the daughter of a deceased cop, Terry Todd, Terry with a Y, and she is now a cop following in his footsteps, trying to figure out what got him killed. She is working with her dad's former partner, Mr. Yanis, and just a hint, if you ever meet a character in any fictional story whose name is Yanis, you can go ahead and assume that he has some sort of dual identity, as this guy does. We find out that he is a monster who can also transform into a human, and all that is in the first or second issue of this book, so I don't really consider that to be a spoiler when it's 8 issues long. Basically, the atmosphere of this book is maybe my favorite thing about it, and that's not a diss against everything else about the book, because there's a lot of really cool stuff here, but I really love that this feels like several different genres kind of thrown together, and you wouldn't necessarily think that these things would work together, but they work very well. It's like, what if we took all the Hammer monster movies of the 1940s, and we added the mobster movies of the 30s and 40s, and we threw them together into one story, and it works very well. I really like the way that they went about doing the story. It kind of reminds me of Batman the Animated Series a little bit, how that series was set in the present day, technically, but then a lot of the atmosphere of that show felt like it came from the 30s and 40s, and this book is the same way. Also, you've got the titular monster of this book, Frankenstein Mobster. That is, I guess I shouldn't spoil who that is, but again, that's one of the things that's revealed in like the first 2 issues, so I don't know if it would be a big spoiler, but I won't spoil it since I already spoiled something about Mr. Yanis. But I really like this book. I don't have much more to say because this is one of those things, if I talk much more about it, I'm going to be spoiling some stuff that might be a fun reveal, but I really love this book. The artwork here is really good. I don't remember if I mentioned this in yesterday's video, but Mark Wheatley, when he's doing art, his artwork is almost got this painted quality to it. I'm not exactly sure if he does paint all of his work or if he just makes it look like it's painted, but I really love his art. It's not necessarily realistic. If you look at someone like Alex Ross, who does paint all of his work, and he goes for a very realistic quality, Mark Wheatley's work is not necessarily realistic. That's not to say that it's cartoony, but it's more leaning towards cartoony than it is realistic. But it's still got this kind of painted vibe to the pictures. It's hard for me to describe. I guess I could just go ahead and show you one of the pictures here. It doesn't really look realistic per se. It definitely looks like it's drawn. It doesn't look as realistic as, say, Alex Ross, but it does kind of have a little bit of a darker realism to it than a cartoon picture would, for example. But this guy, you may have seen his art before in the sitcom The Millers that came out like 5 years ago. He did some art for that in one of the episodes. I remember him mentioning that on one of his social media places. But anyway, really like this book. I think this might be my favorite book by Mark Wheatley. There's a couple more that I will be talking about in the next few days, and this one is probably my favorite one. Highly, highly recommend that you guys check out Frankenstein Mobster. If you like monster stories, if you like mob stories, if you like cops trying to uncover corruption a la Serpico, then this book will be right up your alley. It's got all those things, and they all marry perfectly together. It's really, really great. Love this book. Definitely will be rereading it again in the very near future. It had been way too long since the last time I had read it, and I remember as I was reading it, loving it as much this time as I did the last time. So definitely you guys need to check out Frankenstein and Mobster. So that is all that I have to say about this book. I hope that you guys liked this video, and if you did, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I will be back tomorrow with another Mark Wheatley book. In the meantime, you guys have a great rest of the day. Catch you later.